welcome to the Science Faction Podcast, where science meets fact meets fiction.
This is Science Faction for the week of March 3rd, 2025. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Dominguez, and with me today, two individuals that just cannot wait for that green beer.
Good morning. I'm Benjamin Daniel Lawless, and no thank you this year.
Oh, okay.
This is Devon Craft. I didn't even know that was coming up.
It's March, man.
One of those holidays.
Do either of you guys?
I mean, if you'd even call it a holiday, but that's one of those holidays that I've never taken a second to put in the effort to remember when it is, or like even what time of the year it takes place.
So you're just like living your life, and suddenly you're like, "That's weird. There's green stuff everywhere." Oh well.
Well, I mean, until you said green beer, I was like, "Oh, that must mean St. Patrick's Day." But that, and like, if for the longest time, I guess before I had kids, even having kids, like Easter was one of those holidays. I'm like, Easter could be October 3rd, and I wouldn't have any reason to disagree with you.
All right. Well, you know what? Come October 3rd, I'm celebrating Easter in solidarity with you, Devon.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Fantastic. Ben, how are you doing? Do you care about anything? Because Devon doesn't.
I care about anything. I care about a lot of things. I think that's part of the problem.
Oh, Ben cares too much.
I think I care too much. But on the Venn diagram, it is lots of caring, and trying to not care as much about a lot of things.
Wait, did you say Venn diagram or Ben diagram?
Ooh, I'll let the I'll let you decide.
Okay.
You heard what I said.
Yeah,
man. No, you guys, like, Microsoft is axing a lot of stuff. I don't know if you guys noticed this.
I mean, I've got Windows 11, and they say it's fine, and so I agree. That's all I know about Microsoft.
Right. Yeah. So Windows 10 is entering its end of life.
Right. Yeah. That's why I did Windows
soon.
11. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And so you went to Windows 11, which I have not, like, my experiences with it have not been great.
Okay.
I dislike the UI. I dislike the fact that you're a one click away from seeing President Trump's face everywhere on your entire screen at any moment across your operating system.
I'm going to click once, and yep, there he is. Yeah, you're right.
There he is.
That's awful. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not
It's
gonna click
absolutely terrible. No, thank you. Right. Like, and so, like, yes, that is a button you do not need to click. However, like, hey, and that's an operating system you pay for. Wow. How incredible.
Did I pay for this? I think I did pay for it.
I mean, you don't need to, I suppose.
No, I'm trying to remember, because I've just been like upgrading and updating, and I can't remember the last time I paid. I don't know if I paid for a license for 10 or if it was whatever was before that, and it would just like kept upgrading. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Go ahead. Keep going.
Gotcha.
Windows 10 is leaving.
Windows 10 is leaving. I installed Kubuntu because I'm on my gaming PC, because I'm like, you know what? Let's, like, now's as good a time as any to try this. Let's just see, if some of the challenges that I was concerned about moving to Linux on a gaming PC, if they're really founded.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had differing levels of success. One thing to note is that if you're trying to do VR with, like, in the same way that you would do using an app called Virtual Desktop, using your Quest, your Meta Quest, in order to connect to a PC, it's a different app on Linux.
Okay.
But you can still do it.
All right. So there's still a path. All right.
There's still a path. It's not, the thing is, as with a lot of different things, you have to search online. You have to DuckDuckGo some questions that you have sometimes, you know?
Yeah. It's not. I mean, that comes with the territory with Linux. It's not easy,
and with
but
pretty much any new
there.
operating system. Yeah, like
Yeah.
if you're like, oh hey, I don't know what to do, you can search for it. You can find out an answer.
I mean, that's
the second
hold
thing.
on. That's everything though.
Yeah.
That's life. If you don't want to know what
That's
to
life.
do, you just search the internet and it will tell you.
Yeah.
It's
Congratulations.
Up to you to listen.
You're
or
winning.
not. Yeah. Congrats.
And then secondly, the other thing I was curious about is, well, will Forza Horizon 5 run on it? Haven't gotten it to work yet.
Oh, all right.
There now, mind you, on several forum posts I've seen, including ProtonDB, which is a great place to look, they say it is runnable. You can even run it on a Steam Deck. So I just haven't found the right settings yet for my particular setup to make it work. You know, however, a lot of other games have been great, including Wheel World, which is an upcoming like the demo for Wheel World, which is a it's a single player. It's like if Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, if you had like an open world like that, but instead of being, you know, Link, you're a bicyclist and you're running races against other people in a cel shaded world. It's super cool.
Devin, do you know what any of that?
Was.
Do you know what any of that means? That what Ben just said?
Not really.
Okay.
All right.
Real quick, Ben. Steam OS. What about that? Because that's like a whole
they
thing.
They haven't released a version of Steam OS that like works on any hardware yet. There is a community maintained thing called Bazite, which a lot of people have a lot of success with, and I'm considering moving to that soon. But I decided, you know what, like, here's me dipping my toes into, you know, let's get an Ubuntu flavored distro. Okay. And I went with Kubuntu, which is the KDE desktop environment, because I've heard it is very customizable. And boy, have I had a lot of fun customizing it.
Okay.
So like the things I mentioned that were a little problematic just before, those have been my only problems. Everything else has been like, hey, I really like tinkering with how the system looks and feels, and what the kids call ricing the operating system.
Ricing?
It's ricing. Yeah.
Sounds racist. What is it? What is ricing? That's just what they call customizing?
Yeah. Ricing Linux. So if you search for ricing Linux,
I feel like that's a trap.
It's
but I'm
so
gonna do
it comes from car terminology, like ricing.
Oh, so it is
world.
Racist. Okay, got it.
No, RICE stands for race-inspired cosmetic enhancement.
It does not. But
so,
go ahead.
Like, yeah, eventually it might have stood for that, but that's probably not the origin.
Sure. This is what it's called.
Okay.
Like, yeah. So anyhow, if you were to do that sort of customization to a car and you wanted to have the equivalent thing on an operating system, that is what that's called.
Okay.
Whether its originations are racist or not. If it is racist and you'd like to correct me, let me know. But if you,
I think we just did. You're still using it, so.
All right. Look,
I highly doubt that y'all are actually offended by the term.
Oh no, I'm not offended by it.
I'm offended on behalf of others. Look, I found on a Reddit a subreddit called Unix porn that says, stupid question. Yes. What is ricing? And the top answer from 10 years ago was what you just said. Ricing comes from the car terminology. In the car world, rice stands for race-inspired cosmetic enhancement. When you put a scoop on your car that doesn't lead to a cold air intake or a big spoiler, which won't make a difference, you're ricing. The idea is to increase its perceived performance through cosmetics. The top response is, I'm pretty sure it isn't an acronym, and it is in regard to the fact that these cars being upgraded are Asian. usually civics.
Yeah, it's a post hoc acronym, I guess, is what they say.
Yeah, I think that's what that is. But regardless, hey man, make your OS look however you want it to look. That's all good.
And it's pretty, super pretty.
That's awesome. Devon, what about you, man? I see you did some stuff as well.
Oh yeah, you traveled.
Ah man, I want to make a joke that you guys canceled.
No, make the joke and I'll edit it out. Maybe.
No, I only. Okay, so I'm trying to think. I was trying to think of a lesser version of it, but even then, it's not great. So, actually, I had questions for Ben. So as I mentioned last week, was kind of ricing out my office, and
yes.
No, guys, no.
So a lot of Asian artwork.
Devon's
that
canceled.
is not the joke I was not saying. That just came to me afterwards. Sorry. You can edit that out too. So I'm improving my office. I painted 2 of the walls. I sent you guys some pictures of it. I think it turned out pretty well. I put a TV in my office because I've got the couch on one wall staring at a wall that has a great place for a TV. And as I think I've maybe mentioned before, I have a gaming computer in my office that I don't really use very much. And I know through emulators, I'm like, what are those called? Emulators, you can play like old video games. And so I thought, well, my kids are playing Super Nintendo games. Mostly Nolan, my 7-year-old, was playing Super Nintendo games, like Mario World. And I'm like, well, there's the earlier Mario games and other stuff he could probably play. And I could use my gaming computer to do that. But Jen doesn't really want me to bring my computer downstairs to our TV, understandably. So I put the TV in my room, my office. And that got all set up, which is cool. This weekend I was planning on doing more. Like I showed you a picture and like the wires, like the power cords for the TV and the HDMI cable are kind of just like out there and you can see them. I have the stuff to like drill a hole in the wall and feed them through the wall. But this weekend we ended up, rather than doing that, we ended up rebuilding part of our fence and then going to Dallas to go to Meow Wolf. But that's a separate thing.
So much
my
just
point
happened.
Was, Ben,
go ahead.
My point was, Ben, you sent me information on how to install like an emulator on my computer.
Yes.
Which I know you can just like go online and use an emulator through a browser, but it seems to be a little less reliable. And I thought it would just be easier just to have one like on my hard drive, so I don't have to worry about any connection issues or anything. So I did that and I followed the instructions with the YouTube video you sent me. And it all basically made sense. There was 1 or 2 pages, one in particular, I almost took a picture of it to show you guys, where it's like during the installation process, it's like, okay, now at this point, you need to, put your ROMs in the right folder. But the way it was described, like the YouTube video helped, but on the actual program, when I was going through this step, there was one page in particular where I was like, I don't know half these words on this instruction, or how they relate to each other or what I'm supposed to do. Luckily, I have the YouTube video to know what to do, but I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I still have questions about the way the whole thing's designed, and it still seems way more complicated than it has to be, but that's just because I'm used to things where, it's designed for a particular purpose. It's a video game. You install it, you play it. You don't have to like, okay, I've installed this program. Now I've got to move all these files over to the right folders. Now I have to tell the program to scan it. Now I have to tell that program to talk to this other program where I can actually play these things. And then when I go into that program, which is Steam, it's going to show a list of all the emulators, which I understand I can tell it not to do that, but also a list of all the games you can play, which makes me question, why are you showing me a list of the emulators when I can just directly play the game from Steam? And I'm sure there's a reason. But also, I got Super Mario All-Stars to work because that's primarily what I wanted to use so that Nolan could play the first 3 Mario games. And I've used All-Stars because I figured, the graphics are better than the actual original games. But I tried to also do Donkey Kong Country. It was actually Donkey Kong Country 2 because we have Donkey Kong Country 1 on our Super Nintendo. And I couldn't get it to work. Like I downloaded the ROM, put it in the correct folder, and then and it would come up in Steam, like it would say Donkey Kong Country 2, and I would click on it and it would like load and then it would like crash. It would say like starting and then it would like give you the like, do you want to start the program? Like it would bring up like a window and then it would quickly close, and it was clearly not working. So
it was just
could've just put the
transferring. It was
ROM or
transferring all the
something.
money out of your bank account to another
Yeah.
bank account is what was happening.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
Also, what's a bio or BIOS, and why do some games need those as well?
Okay, you've asked like 5 questions.
Yeah.
And in the order of asking, you might find that. So I recommended Emu Deck, which is it's basically a program that's meant to ease the complication of installing a lot of different emulators so that you have access to the maximum number of old consoles as opposed to just doing one console at a time. So a lot of the complication that you're seeing is actually much simpler than if you went through and said, oh, hey, now I'd like to play Sega Saturn, or now I'd like to play the Nintendo Entertainment System. Like, what do I get? And so it's like an opinionated way of installing a bunch of other things, and then also having a system in place for when those systems get updated, that you can opt into those updates as well and get new releases so that your games work better, or that they work on new operating systems.
Mm-hmm.
I'm familiar with Emu Deck because of using it on my Steam Deck, which is a Linux-based system. I am super stoked that they have a Windows equivalent. I have no experience with it, but what you're experiencing does match some of what I've dealt with. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, when I have a game that does not work, like a singular game, it sometimes has to do with just a corrupted file.
Yeah.
So finding it again, re-downloading it, or getting it from wherever like getting it from your properly legally acquired system that you were able to dump the information from. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'd say try again with a different file, or try to get a different file.
Yeah.
BIOS, some operating, or some gosh, how can I say this? Not all emulators work out of the box. Some emulators require proof that you or additional verification that you have all of the files having to do with how the emulator works. And part of that has to do with, well, emulators are in a legally gray territory sometimes. Sometimes you can say, oh, this is used for game preservation, or is
that was
just for...
funny part of the video where they were like, well, we can't give you the ROMs. We can't tell you where they are, but you might be able to figure out where to get them. And there's a picture of Google, and they're like zooming into Google.
Yeah. And BIOS are sort of the same thing. They're parts of the operating system of those old consoles that they could not legally distribute with the emulator. So in some cases, the BIOS is required for the emulator to work at all. In other cases, the BIOS is required for it to work at like its best performance.
Well, and I didn't even look. Like, they said, like, go to this website, their own website, where it has like an encyclopedia for each console and which games need what. And I didn't even check if Donkey Kong Country 2 needs a BIOS, so it could just be that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
this didn't work, and I'm lazy. How come? Well,
have you guys? This is a tangent. Have you guys read Zen: The Art of Motorcycle Maintenance?
No, but it's been recommended to me quite a bit. Okay.
There's one of the
have you read it?
I'm reading it right now. One of the early points is the main character talks about a friend who's like that, where they didn't fix the faucet in their sink at home, and he's like, whenever I go over there, it's like dripping. And I asked them once about it, and his friend was like, oh yeah, I put a new washer on, and that didn't fix it. And that was like the end of the conversation. So it's like, oh, I guess it's just gonna be dripping forever now. Which I feel like is kind of like me in that situation, like you were just describing. Like, yeah, it didn't work. I guess it's never gonna work.
Yep.
Well,
So,
I mean, again,
well,
if
what's interesting about this interaction between you two is that there are some people, myself included, that when you go to figure out something like this, like I'm going to try to get this emulator to work, that is fun for us. We get in there, we try to figure it out, we do the research, we try the files in the different places and download and re-download and try it and restart it and blah, 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 blah. And that's fun for us. For other people, and I'm assuming, Devon, you're in this group, it's like, this is a hassle, but I guess I can do it. It's not working a little bit. Nah, forget it.
Yeah,
and those
it's not
are,
worth
For the
it.
most part, yeah,
Those are
for
two
something like
very
that.
different
There's
people,
other
yeah.
things where I would be interested in, like,
oh, certainly, yes.
yeah, but you're right. For that, I'm like, I don't care. I just want to be able to play the game. If I can't play the game, it's not that important.
Right.
And I think that ideally, it's kind of going back to streaming services and my rant against them, is that the entire idea there is that like we're paying for the convenience of not having to worry about whether or not we're going to get like a takedown notice from our ISP, or like what we want is just access to the content that we'd like to watch or play or any of that stuff.
We just want to
so,
play these old ROMs, and you've not given us a way to do it, so we're going to do it ourselves. Right. Yeah.
Nintendo keeps on shutting down different systems. Like some stuff gets delisted across a lot of different platforms, and it's just like it is not just in gaming. It's not just in streaming. It's not just it's just a fact of the current state of everything.
Yeah.
That right now there is
control.
not. Yeah, right now there's not a one size fits all solution.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
It was great for that like 5-year span where everything was on Netflix, and it was just like, oh, it's all you need. Cool. But
right?
then that ended. So a second ago, I was about to recommend to Devon, like, well, just get a Switch, and then they've got get your little subscription to the SNES app, and they've got a bunch of games there. But that's the thing. It's a bunch of hand-selected games, and they can decide whether or not you have access to them, even though you're giving them money. And that sucks.
And what's wild is that this week, for the first time ever, Nintendo Switch Online has just removed a game from their service, from the Super Nintendo service. It's not Donkey Kong, but I think Super Soccer.
I do want to get a Switch, and when they come out with the next version of it, I think I will get one.
It's a fun little system.
But the point of my situation now is the fact that I have the gaming computer already.
Yeah.
I spent money on it.
Yeah.
And I don't use it, and here's something I could use it for, so I could get something out of it.
Yeah.
So I'll try this. But yeah, I would ideally just go through the normal channels so that everything is optimized for what I want, which is just easy access and play.
Every console you buy is just buying a to-do list of like a shopping list, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it is. Unless you're investing in the PC ecosystem.
All right, I'm going to move us forward because we are already 20 minutes in, and this is a podcast about science and science fiction. And so I'm going to cross off the things I was going to talk about because we don't have time, and I don't care. Future or now? Hey, guys.
Now.
Let's do some science talk. I want to hear about this asteroid impact that's going to kill us all. Devon, can you tell us when we're going to die, please?
Let's see. You're going to die in 2 weeks.
Oh, goody.
Quick, roll the D20.
Finally.
Consult
consult the
chart.
table, the chart, the table. Squids. Oh, dying by squids.
Okay,
Death by
so
squid.
I don't know if you guys have heard about this the last couple months, about the asteroid that might hit Earth in a few years.
Yeah,
Anything?
yeah, I heard about it.
Okay. Well, so this article the title is ESO observations help almost fully rule out 2024 YR4 asteroid impact. And so it's funny because I saw a headline similar to this, and I found this article because the other article was just kind of like a normal like news article from like CNN or something, but it was like, oh, asteroid won't hit Earth. I'm like, I just heard about this asteroid that's gonna hit Earth like yesterday, and now there's already a headline that's like, oh no, never mind. So
we were so close, guys.
yeah, well, at most we had a 3% chance of getting hit. So this asteroid, which is called 2024 YR4, it is 40 to 90 meters in diameter. So it's not huge. It's not like a extinction level event type asteroid. If it hit Earth, it could cause some damage. But it wasn't going to be that big of a deal anyway. But it was discovered last December, and they thought there was a chance it could hit Earth. And the date that they thought it could hit Earth was December 22nd, 2032. Because of its size and likelihood of impact, the asteroid quickly rose to the top of the European Space Agency's risk list, a catalog of all space rocks with any chance of impacting Earth. So they observed it more, and the probability went from 1% up to 3%.
We all cheered.
Yeah, rose to around 3% on February 18th, the highest impact probability ever recorded for an asteroid larger than 30 meters. However, just the next day, new observations made the ESO's VLT cut the impact risk in half. Made with ESO's VLT, which is the telescope they were using. So it followed a expected and understood pattern. To know where the asteroid will be in 2032, we have to extrapolate what the orbit's going to be, and we don't have perfect information, so we can't tell exactly where it's going to be at any given place in the future. And they give an analogy of like a flashlight, like the beam spreads out. So the further away you go, the less likely you are to know where it's going to be. Kind of like when we track hurricanes, like how there's always like it gets bigger and bigger the further it goes. Like when you
grab a Sharpie and you just tell it where it's supposed to go. It's easy.
Exactly.
But yes, I understand what you're saying.
I mean, a weather system, there's a lot more variables, I would think, than an asteroid. For the most part, the size, direction of the asteroid, and the other bodies that are around it that could impact it with gravity. So the more observations we got, the better we could tell where it was going to go. And now we've narrowed it down to the chance of it hitting Earth is 0.001%. And it's actually
those numbers up.
moving away from Earth. What?
We've got to pump those numbers up. What do we do? How do we get it to hit Earth?
Steven, are you okay, man? Because
nothing is okay.
About like mass destruction. Yeah, but what's not okay is the mass destruction. Can we dial that back?
No.
Aren't we? Isn't SMOD, Sweet Meteor of Death, like
what?
What we all? It might be a Twitter account or something. I've heard references to SMOD, Sweet Meteor of Death, and it's like in the election cycle, it's like, well, you're voting for Trump or voting for Harris, so I'm voting for SMOD. I just want this all to end, kind of thing.
I hadn't heard that, but that sounds cool.
I mean, that's basically the what you're doing now.
It's what the purpose of it, and of course, this is for comedic effect, but like, if there was a singular problem that humanity could perhaps rally behind and put some differences behind us and work together, something like this might be it.
Have you seen Don't Look Up?
I have. Stop it.
Have you seen like who's in charge right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's just Musk. Who cares?
Yeah.
Well, who didn't somebody recently say that they're gonna get? Oh, Alec Baldwin was like, "I'm gonna get him out of here. I'm voting for Alec Baldwin."
He's gonna get. Okay.
He like put out some statement that he's gonna make Musk leave or something. I don't know. It's
okay.
Who knows? I don't know.
Is he gonna hire him to be on the set of one of his movies?
Oh, that's dark.
I love that. Thank you, Devon. That makes me feel better. All right. So to reel it back, it's now a very, very low chance that this asteroid's gonna hit. It's still gonna be near us though, right?
Yeah, it'll be near us. That's about it. The only other thing they talk about in this article is that the observatory where these observations were taken, there's another project nearby that is going to cause light pollution. That's going to make it harder to see, well, anything, but specifically, it's going to make it harder to see this asteroid once it's far enough away from Earth. They said With the brighter sky, the VLT would lose the faint 2024 YR4 about 1 month earlier, which would make a huge difference in our capacity to predict an impact and prepare mitigation measures to protect Earth. So what is this project? So the dark skies that made these crucial measurements possible are currently under threat by the industrial mega project INNA by AES, a subsidiary of the U.S. power company AES Corporation. The project is planned to cover an area similar to the size of a small city and be located close to this place. Doesn't say exactly what the project is. It sounds like it might just be a big power plant, but...
Wait, so there's a big
Anyway.
project that's going to cause light pollution, so we won't be able to see if the asteroid's coming?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, cool. That sounds like
So
America.
it's in Chile.
Oh, I thought you said it was... Oh, okay.
The
Well,
project INNA is in Chile.
Okay. Well, these observations are probably taken there too, then.
spicy. Cool. Well,
Yeah.
all right then.
And that's it.
That's that. Ben,
Wow.
let's...
Well,
I'll-
let's stick with local astronomy and maybe even not local. Here's some good news. Engineers have created the first flat telescope lens that can capture color while detecting light from faraway stars. This comes from new research from the University of Utah engineering professor Rajesh Menon and colleagues at the Price College of Engineering, which basically the problem is it's difficult to reduce the weight of lenses that are going in telescopes without sacrificing functionality. And so the slimmer these lenses get and the less heavy that they get, they tend to be limited in their capacity and are generally challenging and expensive to make. So what the University of Utah team has done is they've made a large aperture flat lens that focuses light as effectively as traditional curved lenses while preserving accurate color. So this is from a study in Applied Physics Letters called Color Astrophotography with a 100 millimeter diameter f2 polymer flat lens. And this technology could transform astrophotography imaging systems, especially in applications where space is at a premium, like on aircraft or satellites or space-based telescopes.
Well, so
And,
a flat lens?
yeah.
That's like saying a flat car is going to drive fast. Like what? How does it work?
Well, okay. So lenses, they bend light to make objects appear larger. So the thicker and the heavier the lens, the more it bends the light, the stronger the magnification. For everyday cameras and backyard telescopes, lens thickness isn't a huge problem. But when telescopes have to focus light from galaxies millions of light years away, the bulk of their lenses become impractical.
Mm-hmm.
So observatory and space-based telescopes rely on massive curved mirrors instead to achieve the same light bending effect, since they can be made much thinner and lighter than lenses. So what's been developed now is a flat lens that can manipulate light in a different way. There already is an existing type of lens called a Fresnel zone plate, which just uses concentric ridges to focus light rather than a thick curved surface. This method does create a lightweight and compact lens. It comes with a trade-off. It can't produce true colors. Rather than bending all the wavelengths of visible light at the same angle, the ridges of an FZP, that Fresnel zone plate, diffract them at different angles, resulting in an image with chromatic aberrations or color distortions, what you would see from a Spider-Man cartoon.
I just woke up.
is
What are
not-
you talking about?
Yeah. Gosh, Stephen, I'm answering your question.
I'm
Jeez.
trying real hard.
So this new flat lens that's being developed by the University of Utah is a new flat lens. It offers the same light bending power as traditional curved lenses, but it avoids the color distortions of the Fresnel zone plates. And so yeah, it's looking really good. It still requires microscopically small concentric rings that researchers have been able to pattern on a substrate. But unlike the ridges of these FCPs, which are optimized for a single wavelength, the size and spacing of the flat lens indentations keep the diffractive wavelengths of light close enough together to produce a full color in focus image. So we're talking like incredibly accurate astrophotography.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. And so this could have massive implications across a bunch of industries, but its most immediate application is in astronomy. And this is a stepping stone towards creating very large aperture, lightweight flat lenses with the capability of capturing full color images for use in air and space telescopes. And that was a quote from Menon lab member Apratim Majumder, a research assistant professor in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. So yeah.
And also a wizard.
I mean, kind of.
I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. What I find kind of interesting is that a lot of the space photography that we see, or that are in reported by news outlets or websites, whatever, are colored after the fact. That we're not actually taking color pictures out there, or even Mars. Right? Like last I checked, all the pictures from Mars were black and white, and then NASA colors them appropriately, and then sends them out. So to actually have a telescope that is taking pictures in color is impressive. That's really neat. That's a cool piece of tech.
Yeah. And I mean, part of that, like if you've got photography coming from the surface of Mars, I imagine that the data stream for a color photo would require a bit more information than a black and white photo would.
Yeah, I don't know much about photo programming, but I from going from shades of either white to black to then adding in all the colors, that's a huge jump. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a picture computer guy. What's it like? What is the difference?
I am a picture computer guy. Hi, I'm putting on my picture computer guy hat right now. And,
whoa, look at that.
Yes, can confirm that the amount of information that is transmitted from a black and white photo compared to a color photo, depending on certain bits of bytes and how they're transmitted, does make a big difference.
I trust you because of the hat. If you weren't wearing the hat, I would not trust you.
Yeah, man. And boy, what a hat it is. The man walks down the street with this kind of hat, someone knows that they're not afraid of nothing.
I'm seeing more firefight quotes recently come across my my feeds, like about we were in we lost the war, but I'm still not convinced we're on the wrong side, something like that, whatever that quote is. I've been seeing that a lot. All right, let's go ahead and take ourselves a little break. When we come back, we're doing the book club. We have read part of To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. The first and second parts, we'll go into more detail after the break. But if you haven't read those yet, get to it, because we're going to talk about it. So we'll be right back.
Thank you for listening to the Science Faction Podcast. If you would like to donate to our podcast, please go to patreon.com/sciencefactionpodcast and join the millions who have already donated to our wonderful cause.
And we're back.
Heyo.
Hi.
And a big thank you to our patrons, Renee and Josh. If y'all want to join the three hosts in helping to pay for this show, help us out. That would be cool of you. Patreon.com/sciencefactionpodcast.
Yeah, they're the real winners. Plus, they get to hear me talk about an RPG that I ran this weekend. So if you like RPGs and RPG talk, that's where you're going to find it, on the bonus or the unedited episodes. Oh, yeah. All right, let's get to book club. I guess we could talk about next week, but it's kind of tied into this week. You want to take the lead on this, Ben?
Yeah. Sure. All right. So I brought a novella that I read by Becky Chambers. and it's called To Be Taught If Fortunate. Now, it's a little bit long for a single week's worth of homework for y'all. So we're kind of breaking it up. This is the largest chunk right here to start, but it's the first chapter, which is called Please Read This, and the second chapter called Aecor and Earth. And I guess that's
this week.
That's that.
Next
this
week.
Next week we'll be reading Mirabilis. And so I know we'll get into it, but each one of these chapters is this crew and their experiences on different planets inside of the same solar system that are all supposedly potentially capable of supporting life.
Mm-hmm.
And so Aecor being the first planet that they attend, and then in parentheses and Earth. This week we're going to the first planet and also having some kind of flashbacks to what it was like for these astronauts 18 years prior when they left the Earth and what they left behind.
Was it 18 years? I thought it was 28 years. Did I get that wrong in my head?
There is a difference between how much time has elapsed because of relativity.
Oh, that's right. For them, it was 2 years, but from Earth, it was 18 years?
18.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the earliest that they're projected that they could come back to Earth is 50 years from when they left.
Right. If they just, turn around and head back. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If at the end of their, yeah.
Well, let's get into this.
So,
because
sure.
the please read this part is the main character sending out an update of some sort of like, hey, here's what's been going on. But before that, let me because I don't know if anyone's listening to this because of, the amount of time it takes to send signals back and forth. Let's just talk about context.
Yeah.
And so
she's very clear that at the end of this, there is a question that we need answered.
Mm-hmm.
But there's context that's needed before we get to that question.
Yeah. And so that's essentially, it sounds like that's what the book is the context for the question.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the nitty gritty here. Let's talk about space travel and torpor. Because they don't have cryopods. No, they have torpor. What is that, Devon? What is torpor? I can't. Why am I saying it so weird?
It's torpor.
Torpor, not
torpor.
torpor.
Yeah.
Torpor. Too many R's. I'm not good with R's, so you say it.
I mean, it's basically a version of sleep. I think animals go into torpor like when they're hibernating. But in this case, it's kind of a form of cryosleep, but you do age very slowly. So it's kind of it's kind of a different way of having cryosleep, so that you're not just always using the same words and stuff. But
yeah, I thought
they
it was
don't dream, which is also like Demolition Man. They say you're not supposed to dream, even though he claims he did dream during it. And in this book, like one of the guys jokes about dreaming, and she like gets freaked out, like, "Oh, you shouldn't have been dreaming during that time." And then he's like, "I'm just kidding."
Yeah.
What a jokester.
Yeah, because I mean that would be, like we said, that would be years and years. You would just be stuck in a dreamlike state, which could drive you crazy, depending on how much you understand what's happening.
How lucid you are, yeah.
Yeah, and they even say it's kind of like you kind of black out, like you don't have any sense of time passing. Like even when you sleep, we don't feel the passage of time, but we have a sense that there was time that passed. Whereas if you're like under anesthesia or you black out, like you just like blink and the time has passed and you have no sense of any time ever passing. So she's made it seem like that's more of what this is. Like you don't even realize that time had passed at all.
That's crazy. What I
even
like,
though you do age slowly, which is kind of cool too, because that means that there's still some biological processes going on that keep you alive.
And
right.
What's nice, or what I really appreciated about the way that this kind of space travel was described, is that they start with their head shaved And when they wake up, they've got 2 years of growth on them. Their hair, their nails, their skin smells funky because of, whatever process your skin does. And it's like, this is stuff that if this was a movie, they would scrap immediately because it was like, we don't, this is going to cost extra. Just forget it. They just wake up and keep going. Right.
Right.
Like this is,
I
is
appreciated. Yeah, but I appreciated the kindness of the pods that they wake up in, like that little space that they wake up in, because it's very clear that you have a private space and there's a mirror there, but the mirror is angled in such a way that as you wake up, you can't see what's in the mirror. You allow yourself to have the choice of what you see and how you come to after sleep of this time, and what you choose to work on before you look at yourself in the mirror and see how you've aged.
It kind of lends it to being a kinder sort of space travel. Like they have progressed to the point where there are amenities within space travel. It's not like right now, it's like every little square inch of everything has to be useful because of cost and weight and blah, blah, blah. But they've progressed kind of past that a little bit, it seems. And they do talk about that.
The psychological impact of what it means to have interstellar travel on humans is something that's really explored quite a bit here and then through the rest of the book, which is pretty interesting. And I think that one of the interesting parts that they mention is that like they could not, like from a psychological and philosophical standpoint, they could not have they couldn't send the astronauts out on a one-way mission. The plan is always that they're going to come back, because otherwise what are they doing, like, and here they are 18 years removed from any information that they get back from Earth. So like right at the beginning, this please read this is like, hey, are the government programs that were set up that sent us out there out here, are they even still around?
Do they still exist?
Like, yeah. Do people still look up and wonder what is out there? Like they are as alien. These astronauts are as alien to the humans back on Earth as any other life form.
There was a story that I started writing years ago, and one of the aspects of it was that space travel was very like Star Wars-y, sci-fi, but as they're traveling around, like no problem, they come across like an old ship where the people are in some kind of stasis, because they were shot out towards a star so many years before. I was like, oh, this is outdated tech. Let's wake them up and see when they're from. And this kind of has some... What?
And it ended up being the 1990s, and they were genetically modified humans that had...
I've seen this one.
Yeah. I think they made a movie.
Ricardo Montalban.
Yeah.
You guys, come on. I didn't watch the Star Treks. I didn't know that they already came up with this idea.
There's still time.
There's always time. So then the talk came with, the book talks about, spaceships are great, but they're never really going to be safe enough for us to travel in. Turns out it's easier to change humans than it is to design a ship to keep humans the same. So let's change humans. And so then there's a whole section about that.
Somaforming is what they call it.
Which is what, patches on their skin that changes them, kind of? Is that
so like
that right?
Right at the beginning, the base level, it's like, okay, you get fed by radiation. Like the patches can convert latent area radiation into the nutrients that your body needs. So
baller.
There's no like, yeah. So like some some of the crew, they miss coffee and other caffeine.
Oh,
Other members of the
yeah,
crew
coffee talk.
that could never be bothered to remember to eat lunch are like, this is great. I can continue working. There are 4 members of the crew is also an important thing to note here. Ariadne, who's the narrator of this. Then there's Elena, Jack, and Chikandi. And
very diverse group from various backgrounds and whatnot, which they kind of go over on like the goodbye party because they're all leaving forever. I mean, they're not leaving forever, but they're pretty much saying goodbye to their families because who knows who's going to be alive when they come back.
Yeah.
And I mean, 50 years
that's a long time.
An incredible amount of time. Yeah.
Let's see. What else do the patches do? They solve your cancer. They're cancer solvers. But if you take the patch off, it's coming back. So keep those patches on. It also gives them glitter face, which
it adapts them to every environment they go to. So on this planet, because Aecor is very far away from their sun, and it's a red dwarf star, they needed additional amounts of light in order to maneuver about and do their scientific business and research on the planet. So their skin glitters.
That's cool.
Which was less, basically it's less of a problem than having to constantly charge flashlights or anything like that. No, their skin just,
reflects,
just emits a glow.
Yeah. I mean, that's clever too. And so, by the way you're saying this, Ben, I'm imagining there's going to be different modifications per different planets that they go to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Makes sense to me.
And so I guess that's kind of like the milieu of it is, but they get to Aecor. They and a good portion of it, like in conjunction with the idea of somaforming, and let's make the humans get changed in order to adapt to the environment that they're going into. There's also a lot of concern about coming into an environment and destroying destroying any of the latent life forms that they're sent to investigate and to study. And so there's a little bit of discussion about like, okay, well, what precautions do we need to take? But then on top of that, there's like, well, there is no way by us observing these things in any meaningful capacity that we can't affect the environment that we're observing. So like we have to accept that that's going to be and just minimize our impact.
Yeah.
And
so it's kind of funny because she was like any like evolutionary branch that can be wiped out by one step probably didn't have a great chance to survive anyway.
Right.
Yeah. That's good. All right. So they get down to the planet. They set up a little like inflatable room thing.
Their lab and their hab. So their habitation modules for while they're there, as well as the laboratory equipment and everything for each of the different things that the scientists do. So I mean, of note is that Ariadne, she's the engineer on the ship, just making sure that everything is running smoothly. Is kind of the de facto pilot if they ever need one, even though it's a largely automated process of flying the ship. And then Jack, he likes rocks and dirt and studying what life could be in there. And if there's fossils in those rocks and dirt, then all the better, And I'm forgetting off the top of my head right now what Elena and Chikandi's. I think Chikandi is a like a life form researcher.
Yeah, isn't he the one that discovered the life?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I don't remember. I don't
And
remember the other one.
I think Elena is kind of the mission specialist, like essentially the captain. Like she makes the big calls. She double checks that all the equipment is functioning correctly. She prefers to see everything like visual. She doesn't just stick to, oh, there's a green light on this reading. She's like, no, every day I'm checking out and making sure that all of the equipment that we are depending on is functioning.
Right. It didn't they say that she was the first person to land on an asteroid or something like that? Like she's very experienced with space stuff. Oh, then they rolled a die. So that was the most, I almost forgot the most exciting part. They rolled a D6 to see who was going to exit on this planet first. And it was Ariadne.
It's Chikandi.
I thought it was her. No.
Was it Ariadne?
Yeah, it was her, wasn't it?
I feel like it was Chikandi for this one.
Oh, did I not pay attention?
But
okay. No, it was her. It was definitely her.
Was it her?
Yeah, because she rolled a 2. Right. The GM and me came out with it. She rolled a 2, and they were going for lowest. It was her. Yeah, because it was Jack and another one like tied with 3s, and I think it was Chikande was like a 5.
Beard buddies.
Yeah, beard buddies. Yeah, it's the whole thing. Anyways.
Yeah. So they get to Aecor. It is an ice planet.
Mm-hmm.
There's just ice everywhere. They've found like vents that they're like, hey, should we be concerned about these vents that are expelling gases? And they're like, no, actually, we would want vents because if we don't have vents, things could pop. So
vents are good.
Anyhow, I guess,
okay,
and the story continues.
And the story continues. Ben, since you're the one that has already read this and you recommended it to us, you enjoy this story.
Yes. Yeah, I'd say that this is a 10 out of 10 story. I recommend everybody read it. 100%.
Excellent. Devon, what did you think of this story so far?
So far, I've enjoyed it. Everything makes sense and is well told and is interesting. I'm wondering, like, is the story just exploration, or is there going to be more of like a overarching plot that happens? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because it appears they're like they said they're going to study 5 planets, and the chapters seem to be arranged and kind of studying those planets.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something that develops that ends up connecting everything together? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does someone go crazy and try to murder the crew? That doesn't need to happen.
No spoilers. I would imagine, since this is a novella and we've seen this chapter list, that this is what it is, and any overarching story is going to be primarily within the relationship of the crew, is my guess.
Mm-hmm.
Just a guess.
Yeah, I think it's very important to remember that they reference at the beginning that there's a question that they're sending back. And this is the context to asking this question.
All right. So there is a main point that this is all leading to.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well,
like while right now it may look like, oh, this is just like slice of life of these researchers and everything. Every planet will be very different. And kind of the stories for each of the people, it's like it goes between slice of life and overarching story, but there is a very, very particular question that's being sent.
Okay. Other bit that I really enjoyed is when Ariadne is discussing when she was a child, when she was 4 years old, and she remembers her mom pulling her onto her lap to show her on the tablet, look, we have discovered another an exoplanet that looks like our planet. And she was just like, okay, because that's what a 4-year-old is. It's everything's new to them. Everything's amazing. And this is just one more thing in the list of things.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, like eventually one day we're like, just the fact that there are exoplanets is something that happened in our lifetime, right? Like we kind of guessed that, okay, other stars, sure, there would be other planets, but we've seen them now. And now it's like, okay, cool. There's like 700 or whatever that we've discovered. Like, okay. It's no longer special, and it was kind of interesting that was brought into the story of like, yeah, one eventually, discovering another Earth-like thing out there just kind of became nothing. Like, yeah, we found it.
Right.
No big deal.
Yeah.
Very, very realistic.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like the like, hey, this slice of hope, and then we're so hungry for more information that when none shows up necessarily in the time frame that our attention spans are,
Mm-hmm.
that it just becomes ho hum. Okay, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
For me, I'm really fascinated about the fact that, like, back on Earth, the organization that sent them out here is an organization that is not tied to a single government, and it is
Right.
not tied to capitalism. It is a completely citizen funded like endeavor.
Oh yeah,
in which
I remember that part.
the
That was
donations
interesting.
yeah, the
Yeah.
donations that are given are like, hey, there is no way you could possibly get any return on your investment here. What you're doing here is you're showing that you care about the pursuit of knowledge. And
In our current climate, that was the most sci-fi part of this entire book. I
Yep.
read that. I was like, that's great. That would never happen ever. Just think if those 5 or 6 billionaires got together and donated half of their wealth towards this unified space program, what we would be able to accomplish. Nah. And I mean, it was also nice that they put in like, hey, anybody, if you donate any amount of money, you're put on this like the shrine, this list. And Ariadne remembers a time when she first showed up at this organization and like attempted to look for her name, but there were just so many names that she wasn't able to find it.
Well,
the
let's
time she
start.
did.
yeah.
Let's start a GoFundMe or a Patreon for
Yeah.
this.
Okay, sure.
If we get enough money,
Mhm.
I mean, we'll do the research,
Yep.
set up a company,
Uh-huh.
buy the rockets,
Sure.
go to Mars. Like, we'll do the whole thing. We just need to raise like 50 billion, maybe $1 trillion.
Yeah. Let's go. Get it set up, Devon. I'll
I would
donate.
absolutely dedicate my life to doing all of that, taking a modest salary, like honestly, out of that. I mean, 100 grand probably a year, but
Congratulations, you're already in the red.
I mean, if that was to seriously happen, that's the
Yeah.
whole point. It's not going to happen. Like, we would raise a couple $100.
Oh,
Or
no,
I mean,
yeah,
have the
you-
money to make it work. Like, if you actually were like, no, this is a legit thing. We're starting a company. We're going to do it. We need people to know about it, which means we need to spend money on advertisement. And you're right. You'd end up in the red very quickly. And then you would hope that you would get enough donations to make it happen. That reminds me, there was a thing a few years ago about a company that was going to do like, we're going to go to Mars. We're going to source our astronauts from the general public, sign up. And I don't know if they were going to have like a reality show to determine who the actual astronauts were going to be. But I remember that being a thing.
Yeah, I
And
think we
of course
covered
it never
it.
happened because
Right.
it's ridiculous. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
so similar kind of thing where if you're trying to.
I mean,
fund
all of the non-NASA space stuff that started happening kind of had the same vibe. We're like, oh, okay, we could just have independent people. This doesn't need to be connected to the government, and we can just have people create companies and start building rockets and start doing stuff. And that was pretty exciting for a while.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it
yeah, and
still
so-
is to some extent, depending on what the company's goal is. Like, I mean, even SpaceX, if you get away from all the crap, Elon Musk, their actual efforts to design reusable rockets and things like that, and actually putting people in space, like that's all laudable. I mean,
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was like I
and
said,
will be
it was exciting
have
for a while.
results, hopefully. What'd you say? I missed it.
That was
was
exciting
exciting
for
for
a
a
while, and now it feels gross and yucky.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like the engineering part of it, like the usable part of it, I still feel like has value.
Oh yeah, reusable
Elon
rockets
himself
great.
and all that crap. Yes, like his vanity of being the one to do this, and obviously all the other crap that comes along with him is terrible. But I still think the tangible aspects of it are still worth pursuing and will help us in our whatever future things we do for space travel.
And aren't there like 3 different moon landers on their way right now? Or, like there's a bunch of stuff going on with the moon that like nobody's covering. And the only reason why I know about it is
like other countries sending
isn't
things to the moon, and like our plans to go back to the moon in the next like decade.
It was there's like landers or probes or whatever like there now or on their way now from other countries and stuff. So like space exploration isn't dead, it's just not being covered. And so like that's the point with this story, is that it seems like it became popular. Like, hey, anyone have any spare change? Throw it at the space people, because they're making
They
it
also
happen.
talk about how it became unpopular, because didn't they say like people hadn't gone back to space between like the 2030s and the 2080s?
Yeah,
or something.
like 50 years, no one had bothered. Yeah. It might take us a good 50 years to get something like this off the ground, guys. Are you ready to strap in for that? Got another 50 years in you?
And then on top of that big question also at the beginning, which is like, is this still something that humanity is doing?
Yeah.
And they don't know.
They do not
know. Like, yeah, they have information that they get that's 18 years out of date from Earth on a regular basis.
And they're surprised at fashion, which was fun.
Yeah. So, man. Are you guys interested in reading the rest?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So I've read Becky Chambers before. We've talked about it ad nauseum on the show. Both Monk and Robot series and the Wayfarers series. Yeah, go check those out. At least go read A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. And Monk and Robot. I'll read all of it. So like I know her style of writing, and I like how she'll take something that I've never thought of and do it so well. Like I have never in a space anything ever thought about hair growth and nail growth while in some kind of travel. Ever. Yeah. Never thought of it. And she made it like this key component of humanity. Like, you know, in such a nice way that didn't feel like it was out of place. It felt like it was part of it, right? Like it didn't feel bolted on like, oh, and then here's some body horror and then we forget about it and move on. Like I imagine it's going to be constant. And that's something from her writing and like time scales with space travel that is present in some of her other work of like, what are real things that you need to think about in this sort of space travel? And in the other book, like they taught like in that A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, the ship that they're on punches holes in reality to make like warp
to make wormholes.
Yeah, for travel to be fast. They just have to take the time to get there to punch the hole. That's like a whole nother thing, but they're still like dealing with being on a ship that's small and cramped, and they have to worry about food and air and piracy and like all this stuff. And that's just, it makes the reality of that world felt so real. Like it very easy to be like, oh, I get this. This is relatable. This makes sense. Nothing is too sci-fi, right? Like there's nothing, the most sci-fi stuff in this story was like the patches. Like that feels like, oh, this is the magic thing that we just used to make everything else happen. Right. And that's fine. You can have that in sci-fi and that's not a big deal. And like for the other one, for her, A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, it felt like the communication and friendliness between alien races was the magic bit in that one of like, yeah, we all just kind of learned each other's languages and it's fine. And then let's move on, because that's not really what this is about, but we'll address it and then move on.
I think it's fascinating, kind of going to the Star Trek angle, somaforming and the philosophical portion of, instead of like, terraforming an environment, we change ourselves to fit the environment. That's what the Illyrians did in Star Trek Strange New Worlds. That their entire idea, like Una Shin Riley, the number one on the Enterprise in Strange New Worlds, she's an Illyrian. She comes from a race where their entire philosophy is, no, we do conduct genetic transformations on our populace in order to adapt better and to leave less of a mark. But the Federation, like, and specifically Earth's history with genetic modification is so dark that, like, basically they're like, well, anybody that does genetic modification, you're immediately like an enemy,
Yeah.
So it's fascinating kind of seeing that play out here as well. Is really cool.
In a positive way so far.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
All right. So next week, we are reading the next chapter. How did you pronounce that, Ben?
Mirabilis.
Okay, because in the audiobook it was Mirabilis.
Okay. Yeah, I did not listen to this, so I would probably say it again.
Mirabilis.
Mirabilis. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Either way,
I will adjust.
And it's fun.
I will somaform my language.
You do that
to adapt.
Devon, are you doing audiobook or words?
Audiobook.
Okay. Yeah, they do a pretty good job of everyone on the crew kind of has a different accent, so it feels very multicultural, which is fun. That's a fun audiobook thing, You kind of get those accents, even though like eventually you find out, oh yeah, this dude's probably Australian, but like from the moment he starts talking, you're like, that guy's Australian, and that's kind of just like a fun audiobook thing that they can do.
Okay.
Anyways,
cool.
Yeah, it's fun. All right, well, guys, we have reached the end again, my friends, and since Devon's got a hard stop, we got to get out of here. Devon, do you have any final thoughts for us?
No.
That no kind of sounded like a yes, but I'll move on. Ben, do you have any last words?
Here's a little math problem for you. If Dave has 45 chocolate bars and eats 40, what is he left with? Diabetes. Dave has diabetes.
You're doing diabetes jokes now?
It's just it's what happens when you forget that you've got an entire bit that you're doing every week. This is what you get.
This is what you get. Good night, everybody.
This has been the Science Faction Podcast. Tweet to the host at SciFactPodcast. Email them at sciencefactionpodcast@gmail.com and visit sciencefactionpodcast.com for more episodes.